I feel like we're really in Renaissance.
Yeah.
We're partly remaking ourselves. We got the Metro, which is probably the biggest transportation investment in South LA.
I see it when I'm down there. Absolutely.
It's, everybody who comes out of the airport will roll through the Crenshaw District.
Right.
And through Hyde Park, through Leimert Park, in order to get really downtown or to get to the west side or anywhere. That's what's going to happen. And so we're excited about the future. Yeah. And, there's a great sense of hope and a great sense of resiliency.
Great to see you.
Out here in the sunny San Fernando Valley.
That's right. Absolutely beautiful day, by the way.
Gorgeous day.
The rain, as we know, in Los Angeles always clears to make for absolutely.
It's like taking a good bath. The city takes a good bath, so everything looks spick and span for a few days.
There you go. And speaking of spick and span, before we get too deep into it, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We have two sponsors today. First and foremost, longtime sponsor, Ardo Brick, who keeps things spick and span with his beautiful tiles and bricks created in a factory in Gardena, keeping jobs in Los Angeles. And those spick and span tiles and bricks go to our historic landmarks, Alvera Street, Mariachi Plaza, USC, La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Great work, Armin, my man, third generation LA American Dream story. And our other sponsor, somebody that we use and we love at home. This is Bad Badger Hot Chocolate Protein, 10 grams of protein per serving. This is for your kids and your kids in sports. I know everybody, my son plays baseball, skateboarding, bike riding, soccer. Parents are always like, I want him to eat healthy. I want him to eat protein, blah, blah, blah. This is a good, easy trick for getting protein into your little one. He has a glass before bed every night and he literally loves it. And honestly, I'd be lying if I said I didn't love it too. It's delicious. Bad Badger Treats. Use the code in a minute and you'll get 15% off your order. So thank you, Bad Badger Treats. But thank you, Marqueece Harris-Dawson, for being here. It's exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to do it. I know we tried to schedule a few times.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if I saw a tweet or we did a text exchange when we were having the convention center vote. And I was like, I got to get out there and explain that to you because that's a wild one.
I have thoughts on that. Should we dive in there? You want to dive right in that? Because
I'm here for it.
And let me frame it too. This is what, a $2.6 billion project? Is that correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'll give my perspective.
Yes.
Okay. The convention center, I go every year for the car show. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law, Dave, shout out, very vested. We take his son, my nephew, and then my son, and we all go. It's our little tradition. And the convention center, it's big. It serves its purpose. I think it's flawed. and I think it needs to be upgraded. I have heard people say, when I did an episode on it, people say it needs to be completely demolished or worse and rebuilt. But the city recently approved a huge overhaul. Tell me about it and tell me why we need it other than we're struggling to draw a major convention.
So, that's basically it. The price tag was shocking to me. And I have to be honest, like before I was council president, the great thing about LA City Council is, you have 15 people very talented. And generally speaking, every big topic, you have 2 or 3 people that are really into it. I wasn't one of the people that was really into the convention center. Like, I knew it was, you know what I mean? Like, you'll hear them talk more on certain issues.
Yeah, of course. They're pet issues.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And you can see who's who and who speaks up. And this wasn't one of my issues, but now you're president and it's like, we got to decide.
And everything's your issue now.
Right. Everything has to be your issue. You have to know enough about it to be into it. And I agreed with your assessment of it. I go in there 2 times. I'm really going to tell on myself. So I go sometimes for the car show, but since they closed the Santa Monica airport, the Barney's annual sale, it's at the convention center now. And so I go to it. I didn't even know that. Yeah. And what I remember about it is like, I'm in there and I wanted to price compare something. Yeah. And there's no Wi-Fi. Like you can't get internet.
Terrible. You reminded me because you do need to go outside and then you're in that concourse area trying to get one bar. I forgot. I didn't even think about that.
And so like you're at the car show, you can't even post on social media. Like I'm standing next to the whatever Lamborghini or whatever. So that's what I remember about it. You know what I mean? And then just recently we had a meeting, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee had a meeting.
We're going to dive into that, by the way.
Hey, we'll get to the Olympics later. And we're in the meeting, and there's people from all over the world there, and they're, talking about, well, I don't even remember the topic because I was so mortified and embarrassed. So we get ready to show a video.
Yeah.
Someone rolls in one of those. Remember middle school when they rolled in the TV?
As soon as you said it, that was exactly what I was thinking.
And I was like, oh my God, like this is insane. Yes. Like every other convention center has built-in LED in every room.
Correct.
Like every space. And they have them giant and they have them small, So it just was really, really behind, and really was a building that was done in the 1980s, and it looked like it. And so we had a couple choices. We could do nothing. We could just say, we're going to wait till after the Olympics.
Oh boy. Yeah.
There was an idea to kind of half do it. Let's clean it up, spick and span. It'll be a few $100 million. And then we
a facelift? What would that
facelift,
have been?
A facelift would have been like $700-800 million.
Like change the carpet,
change the wiring, put in some LED. Like some of these things you could do cosmetic.
Again, if you haven't been there, it feels old. Like let's just call it what it feels like. It hasn't changed since they built it.
It does. It does. Yes. And so what that would have done is it would have looked nice for the Olympics. Like it wouldn't have looked so embarrassing, basically. It was a lower amount. Yeah. And so it was a much more manageable amount of money. And then we could come back to rebuilding the whole thing after the Olympics.
Right.
And so, and then it was just do it and do it now.
Yeah.
Right. And I will tell you, the thing that moved me was I called people I knew at construction companies, and there are only about 8 or 9 in the country that are big enough to do a project. Okay. And I said, this is the price we have today. Tell me what you would charge me for the same thing after the Olympics.
Okay. Oh,
and
boy.
Everybody to a company. And these are companies that didn't have the contract.
Yeah.
I didn't go to the company that had the contract because I knew what they would say.
Right.
Everyone said, if I was able to get it to you for double, it'd be a miracle.
Yeah, not surprising.
Not surprising. And they just said, it's just like your house. The lowest value of your house is the value today. You know what I mean? Like that's absolute. And anybody who has any property in Southern California knows the cheapest price is the price today. It's not going down. As Fat Joe says, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Okay.
And that, when I heard that, I said, you know what, we got to bite the bullet. I told my colleagues, like, we're going to get criticized. People are going to think we're crazy. I said, but if we don't do this, we're leaving a $4 billion bill for whoever comes behind us.
Because it will have to be done.
Because it has to be done eventually. I wasn't prepared to make the choice. Because the other thing is, if you say we're not going to do it until it's affordable, then basically you're saying we're not going to have it.
Kick the can down the road.
Right. You keep kicking the can, and then suddenly you're not a major city.
And I was shocked. I forget. I don't have the stats in front of me, but when I did the report, I think we were rated like 33rd of the cities in the United States as far as 33rd best convention center. And we were behind like Anaheim, San Diego, maybe even Long Beach as well. Great cities, all great cities.
All wonderful cities, but they're not Los Angeles. They're not Los Angeles. Yeah.
And for people that might not understand, the convention center is a magnet for business and dollars and tax dollars and revenue. And just to have major conventions is important for the city, to have the people coming through tourism.
Look, the other thing that was a moving factoid to me was when you go to the people who manage the city's finances, basically what they tell you is every part of the city has come back from the pandemic except downtown. But here's why that's important. Downtown is not just another neighborhood. Downtown is fully a third of the income of the city.
Oh, wow.
So when downtown's down, the rest of the neighborhoods will never make up for downtown not happening.
Right.
So downtown's really dependent upon foot traffic.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. And if you don't have foot traffic, you won't get it. And what was happening at the convention center is basically, and I don't know if I'm even supposed to say this in public, the convention center was giving it away for free. They were letting people have conferences there for cost or less because they needed something to happen. Like the building is in such bad condition.
Look, and when I was in the private sector, when I used to work for companies that would send me to trade shows, right? And we'd go to the Javits Center, the Moscone Center, New York, San Francisco, just other places. You're always like, oh, this is like, this is what a convention center is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say I took it for granted. I mean, I just thought, I was like, oh, convention center is like a generic old falling apart kind of thing. I don't want to say falling apart, but definitely not tip-top
you
shape.
always assume that it's not a state-of-the-art building.
But it's so important. And when you're there for the conventions that are big and the car show, but that's one event, you feel the buzz, you feel the electricity, and you see the people, and all the people come from international, domestic, everywhere, spending money, spending time,
staying in the hotels,
Los
going to
Angeles.
restaurants. You know, and the other thing that is striking is, you know, we have those 2 graffiti towers across the street from the convention center.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And, you know, everybody, there are only a handful of people who are even looking at that project, looking at doing something. And all of them to a person said, if I don't have a convention center, I'm not sinking $1 billion into this project.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have the traffic, then and basically one developer said it very clearly. He said, look, if the city spends $2 billion here, for me to raise $2 billion to do these 2 buildings, I could do it.
Yeah.
City lets this continue to decline. He's like, it's a hard sell.
And I'll tell you, I've always said this. I had a podcast episode on this. LA needs a healthy downtown to be at its best. Like that.
The way our economy is set up, if downtown's not strong, it really doesn't much matter what happens to the rest of the neighborhoods.
More, maybe not more so than economically, but downtown, whether we like it or not, is the heart of the city, and you need a thriving culture. You need it to be a draw for people from out of town, out of state. Our intern today, Ben, by the way, Connecticut, lives in downtown.
Welcome.
Yeah,
one of our colleagues said it in her speech, you know, leading up to her vote. She was like, you know, downtown is a part of the city that gets us other people's money. Like
well
it's
said.
OPM, like OPM, like that's what we need. Like other neighborhoods recycle dollars of people that live here already. Like, you know, that's what, you know, Brentwood or Century City generally, you know, 80% of that money is money from people who live here.
Right.
Downtowns is other people's money from other countries, from other parts of this country, from other parts of the state.
And for those that were around wasn't that long ago, from about 2011 to 2019, I was a firm believer. Like, so growing up, downtown was a ghost town. When, you know, I'm of the, and then Staples Center came in, then LA Live, and then people and restaurants and tattoo parlors and bars and all kinds of, and then all of a sudden, like 2011, 2012, I was like, wait a minute, like downtown's like pretty freaking cool. And then by 2018, 2019, you're like, oh my God, this is like one of the best neighborhoods in Los Angeles.
It was one of the best neighborhoods in the country.
Yeah, and the thriving, dynamic.
The vacancy rate was 0.5%.
Ooh,
like, you know,
you felt the energy.
Yeah. Dude, at any time of day, we finally had a like late night life in LA, which we had never had before that. Yeah. Like, and it, you know, it really popped as a center. And then, you know, the pandemic really, like, the vacancy rate decreased. Because what the pandemic did is it took away a lot of the advantages of living downtown. Yeah. Because now I'm not hanging out at bars and going to restaurants. I also don't want to be walking around the street in close proximity to people, which were all advantages before, turned into a disadvantage. And so by the time it came back, it makes sense that it's the last neighborhood to come back because of all those aspects. Yeah. And then another topic, which I'm sure we'll talk about, you know, homelessness, that's just a place where we just made, you know,
segue into that.
We made a bad call, and I was right there. I'll own it. I voted for it. Yeah. When the city made the decision that in the pandemic, the CDC said you shouldn't disrupt encampments because you just spread the disease around. And I voted for that. One, now in fairness to me and everybody else who voted for that, at the time we thought the pandemic was going to last about 60 days, or 2 months, 3 months, right?
Nobody knew.
No one
anything.
thought it was. No one knew
anything.
But that was a mistake.
Completely unprecedented.
It was a mistake for a couple of reasons. One, the encampments got bigger and more entrenched, and the longer and more entrenched they are, the harder they are to move. The other thing, it was just a miscalculation that I don't blame anybody for this, but the public health people didn't realize.
Right.
The infection rate was very low among homeless people. You know why?
No, I don't know why.
They were the least exposed to people who travel.
That's really interesting.
You know, like the idea that they're going to be in contact with somebody who's been to Asia or Europe or
especially in the beginning days,
in the early part of the pandemic.
Wow,
zero chance. Zero chance. And so it just was a bad call, and downtown paid a high price for that. And we're still trying to get in front of it.
Let me talk about homelessness, just because it's been a kind of a hallmark issue for you, going back to HHH, right?
Yes.
You authored that, is that correct?
That's right.
And look, it's no secret, LA, it's a hot button issue. I kind of think, obviously it's still there, but there's definitely been improvement. I know that when Karen Bass touts the numbers, the haters come out and are like, not true. But you use your eyes, it's improved. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be all better overnight? No.
Is it what it should be? No. But is it getting worse? No. It's for the first time in a long time, it's getting better.
Yeah. So just give me a quick set. We don't need to spend too much time, but I do want to, because it is improving, and it's not. I'll tell you this: since I've been doing LA in a minute, first few years it was homeless. I talk about you need and now there's at least other issues that are kind of cropping up a little bit.
There's room for other stuff now. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about that and your accomplishment.
I think your assessment is right. Homelessness, I think, has three fronts. When I got on the council, the prevailing opinion was, which HHH came out of this, was that if you build enough housing, you can affect the housing market, and so people that are very poor their housing will open up for them.
Yeah.
Well, what that didn't take into account was that LA, even now, is the number one aspirational destination in the world. So when you interview people, in college and graduate school, where do they want to end up?
Yeah.
It's Dubai.
Wow.
And LA.
There you go.
That's where people want to go to become who. So you can't ever keep up. You know what I mean? You can't ever build enough to keep up with that demand.
Greatest city on the globe, and also most interesting city on the globe.
Interesting city. And as much as we may complain about it, and I was just using bad words with the county supervisor because the traffic was so damn bad on the freeway getting here, right? With Lindsay Horvath, I'm like, shouldn't you be doing something about this?
Lindsay Horvath, friend of the show, by the way.
Good but as much as I complain, it's still like people want to be here. I was in line and I was waiting on food that I had ordered from a restaurant, and there were tourists there, and we're chatting in the line, and I'm annoyed that I'm in a line waiting for food, right? And they're like, "How is it to live in paradise?"
You're like, all right.
And they were from Montana, which seems like a pretty nice place.
Big sky.
Yeah, like they were like, "How does it feel to live in paradise?"
Yeah.
And they're like, it's winter and look at how amazing it is. And I'm like, yeah. So like building housing by itself isn't enough.
Right.
You had to do something aggressive to get the people that were off the street now.
Yeah.
Couldn't wait for a house to magically show up for them. And so that's really the contribution that Mayor Bass has made.
Yeah.
Is she's made encampments are her number 1, 2, and 3 issue, right? So she spent a lot of money, broken a lot of rules, twisted a lot of arms, cajoled a lot of people to say, we're going to deal with these encampments and we're going to, go from the further outside the city and we're going to end up in downtown. And so I think that's been good. It's expensive. The Trump administration, I have to just say, frankly, creates a lot of problems for us. Just because
we're definitely on his quote.
Yeah, we have as a pastor said, you might in LA you might feel like you're being targeted. He says, I'm a preacher, so what I'm going to say to you is that you've been chosen. You've been chosen to be the one to stand up in this situation.
Perspective, that's good.
It is really a good perspective to have, and so a lot of our homelessness, now that we've gotten things working, the feds are coming in kind of trying to screw with everything. Yeah. And I don't know what the outcome of that is going to be, but it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight.
Well, in short, we have seen some improvement there, and I get as impatient as anybody, but I see it with my own eyes. The encampments that were in my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods have dissipated, and occasionally they come back, but there's responsiveness,
and people
now.
Get right back on it. Yes,
and I'll tell you something that I didn't see years ago, or even a couple years ago, was the responsiveness. And no, it's not overnight, it's not tomorrow, but like you see stuff so good, progress there. Now let's take it back home for you. Let's talk about your district, CD8. I believe this is a complete list of neighborhoods. Don't quote me, because it is always
I'm sure I'll think of one. Yeah, I'm sure I'll think of one.
But it's somewhat including, and it's mostly and most importantly, South Central Los Angeles, Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw District, Chesterfield Square, Hyde Park, Jefferson Park, Park Mesa Heights, Vermont Knolls, View Heights.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that may not be all inclusive, but that is many of them. Tell me about your district and a perfect day in your district, or just some highlights, or what you
know, like the perfect day in our district. Look, the best song about the perfect day in LA was written about my district, and that's It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube, right?
There you
so that takes place in our district. All of that stuff takes place in where we're at. But that's, you know, where people can just go about their business, and, you know, they can get around, they can get from place to place, they can connect with each other, and they can do it, you know, in the warmth of one of the greatest suns anywhere on planet Earth. And that's, you know, the best thing about CD8 is outside. Like, that's, you know, just being outside and being with each other, and also being the heart, you know, one of the cultural centers of the world, really. If you think about music, you think about film, you think about art, you know, whether it's, you know, Mark Bradford or Kehinde Wiley or Issa Rae or Ava DuVernay or Kendrick Lamar. Like, this is our neighborhood, and our neighborhood produces.
That's pretty awesome. And you know, they fought for it, like to get prominence on the scene, you know?
Yeah,
like,
to get prominence on the scene, and then, you know, just people start, you know, we had a generation of artists where you didn't know where they were from.
Right.
And now people who come from LA are like, or in South LA in particular, like, no, I want you to know I'm from LA.
Yes.
Right? Like, I want you to know I'm from here, right? And I want you to know, you know, my neighborhood and the people in my neighborhood. And I want to take charge of how we're portrayed, right? As opposed to letting the news media do it and then getting upset with them about what they put on you know, how they portray us, right?
Right.
And so that's, you know, I feel like we're really in Renaissance.
Yeah.
You know, we're you know, partly remaking ourselves. We got the Metro, which is probably the biggest transportation investment in South LA.
I see it when I'm down there. Absolutely.
It's, you know, everybody who comes out of the airport will roll through the Crenshaw District,
right,
and through Hyde Park, through Leimert Park, in order to get really downtown or to get to the West Side or anywhere. That's what's going to happen. And so we're excited about the future, and, you know, there's a great sense of hope and a great sense of resiliency, because every day you know, you're in an environment where people are figuring out stuff without the resources that someone in another part of town takes for granted. And that's, you know, that's what's exciting, and that's what makes, you know, most days a good day in the 8th District.
I want to circle back on it. It was a good day too. I want to give a shout out to Doolin's and Harold and Bells, which are
just left Doolin's this morning. We debuted a new mural.
Yes.
Tell
me about the artist who I met.
Tarek Gutierrez. So Tarek, I knew when he was very young. I was, you know, sort of one of his mentors and helped him. He, you know, when he was deciding to go to college, I was helping. So he chose my alma mater, Morehouse College, and he went there. And like, he graduates and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm an artist. I'm like, wait, what? And so I'm like, okay, sure. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, you need a job? And he worked for me for a little bit, because I'm like, sure, you're an artist, bro. He was like, you need a job? I was like, you need a job? I need people. And so he worked for me for like a year and a half, maybe, or, you know, worked with us. I worked with Destination Crenshaw, and then he came in one day and he was like, okay, you know, I feel like I can be a full-time artist now. And I'm like, wait, what? And, you know, the next thing I know, he's in galleries, and, you know, I think he's got 4 large commissions in LA already. That's out to public art, you know, some in commercial spaces, some in public spaces. And so the piece that we debuted today at Doolin's, it's at Doolin's. So you can go to Doolin's, get an Instagram with the mural, and go eat.
And I have a picture with Tarek outside before it was completed. Last time I was working on it. But it is beautiful. But go. And yes, eat at Doolin's, by the way. They do a lot for the community. And there was you know, Greg and I had some deep discussions where neighborhood support is very, very helpful. So go out there, and it's delicious and it's great. And last time I was out there, I brought some back for a big crew, the baseball families for my son, and they were drooling and fighting all over themselves. Delicious.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. It's good food. And that's an institution now. They're celebrating, Doolin's is celebrating 50 years.
It's awesome.
So it's exciting there. And so that's the mural that we debuted today. There's going to be 85 more murals in Destination Crenshaw between now probably in the end of this time next year.
Give me the breakdown. Destination Crenshaw has been much ballyhooed for a while.
Yes.
It's been bandied about. Tell me what it is, what it means, what it represents.
So Destination Crenshaw is really built around the train, and the idea is to build an outdoor public art museum that really celebrates 2 things. One, the story of Black people in Los Angeles and the West Coast, but also that puts the art that comes out of this community in the community. And so, you know, people may know Kehinde Wiley, right? So he's most famous for the Obama portrait, but also he has a series of statues called Rumors of War. So basically what Kehinde Wiley does is he takes, you know, famous statues. The vast majority of statues in the United States and a lot of the world is some guy, usually a white guy with some kind of weapon, either on his way to kill people or on his way back from killing people. That's when you see a statue, that's what it is.
Often a horse.
On a horse.
Even at USC, I was making fun. I don't even know if it's a real person, but Tommy Trojan with his sword. Okay, yeah.
It's like we really lift up, as much as we say we're anti-violence, like we really lift up violence, right?
Put that together.
So what Kehinde does is he takes those statues and he revamps them. And so the Tommy Trojan instead will be, you know, a Mexican kid from the neighborhood holding up a bouquet of flowers, right? In the same way. And so that's what he's famous for. So he has a series called Rumors of War. So this one's going to be woman on horse facing the Hollywood sign, which you can see from LA. And that'll be his statue. And now the important thing about that is, as Kehinde Wiley said when he did the commission, he says, you know, I've done work all over the world. I've never had anything in my own neighborhood. He went to Crenshaw High School.
Wow. That's
the deal. And so, and all the artists
celebrating
right.
That.
And, you know, he's like, this feels like homecoming. Like I've gone around the world and now I'm back. And so those are the kind, you know, we're going to have, Allison Sarr, and I get in trouble, Marin Hassinger, Charles Dixon, like it's incredible. Like Charles Dixon does the famous chain statues. That are, again, he has chains in Paris, in New York, I think there's Seattle, these big chain statues, and each statue has a different shape. You know, sometimes it's chains are laying on the ground. Sometimes in front of New York City Hall, the chain's broken. This one's going to be standing straight up. I think it goes up 40 feet in the air. It weighs 13 tons. And again, he lives in the neighborhood, like he's from the neighborhood. And so we have all this amazing talent right here that the
world has celebrated.
The world celebrates. Everybody thinks is so great, but you have to leave our community to see it. You know what I mean? It's and there's a lot of artists like that. There's Retina and you know, Mark Bradford and all those folks are right there in the neighborhood. And so they're doing pieces that are going to be right there where you can see it on Crenshaw.
You got the art, you got the food, you got the train, you got the people. Destination Crenshaw isn't just a concept. It's actually going to be on the tip of people's tongues. And that's where they're going down. And, you know, along those lines, I know it's outside your district. You guys, you explained that you're bordering Watts, but I just want to talk about the Watts Towers for a second, in the sense that, and this is the truth, I did not go down there to see them until I was doing LA in a Minute stuff. And I was like, okay, it's cool. But then I actually went and saw there and marveled at it. And you think of the story and I'm like, if this was in, let's call it what it is, a whiter neighborhood or a wealthier neighborhood, this would have the esteem of one of the greatest one of the greatest art creations of all time. But because there was no Destination Watts, you know, people
they didn't build around it. And it's not an easy place to visit. That's the thing. Like, by the way, you know what I mean? Like you know, where you're going to park and where you're going to eat. And so it's a whole thing. And so we wanted to build on that, right? And we wanted to build on that concept. The other thing is we wanted to lean into Blackness, right? Because so often we've all been trained as a community, like, oh, you know, don't mention that you're Black, or don't racialize it, or don't make it about race. And it's like, no, we want to do the opposite. We want to lean into this. And you know, that was really a lesson that we got at the beginning of the project. And you know, I'll tell you a story about, you know, someone who's very dear to me and a hero for our community, Nipsey Hussle, you know, who's the Marathon store is right on Destination Crenshaw, and a part of, part of Destination, right. Yeah, exactly. I told Jorge I was coming on. And he said to say hello. The thing he said was he figured out when he wanted to open up a store, he's like, all these people were coming at me, throwing money at me for me to be on Melrose or for me to be on Fairfax. And then he realized, like, oh, there's value in where I locate. And he's like, why would I make music and make art that's based on this context and then let you make the money off of it? Like, you got to come here. So the Marathon store was all about, like, if you're going to consume my music and listen to these stories and listen to these things, you're going to come to my neighborhood. and you're going to eat with us. Right. You're going to eat with us. You're going to buy gas here. You're going to do what you do in all these other places that have nothing to do with, what I'm about. And, the Marathon store was so incredibly successful. Yeah. While he was living before it closed, we took that to heart. And other celebrities and other folks start doing the same thing. And so, that's how you get Hilltop Cafe by, Issa Rae and, a lot of other great places, really a boon in Leimert Park as well. Yeah. Similar concept to say like
hip hop's heart in Los
Angeles. Our community
Leimert
produces art. You should come here to see it.
It's beautiful.
Because it's not the same. Like we can export it somewhere else for you to look at it, and that's one thing. But it's another thing to consume it here with the people that
look. I always say when I'm doing my LA in a Minute episodes, I can do, and I do some green screen stuff. The convention center was a green screen episode, in fact, because who would want to step foot in there? No, I'm just kidding. No, but when you do the episodes, I always say, go to the neighborhood. Like, how do you go? Exactly, how am I going to talk about a restaurant without going to a restaurant and eating in a restaurant, And it's like, even if it's not for me and it's not about the food per se, it's about feeling the restaurant and that neighborhood and the people, and everywhere has a different energy, a different vibe. And it's so important. And when you're talking about celebrating a culture like this, to celebrate it from afar or celebrate it in an external location that it's a pop-up that we brought in, it's not the same. Right. I have a question for you though. So let's say Destination Crenshaw does what it's supposed to do, what it is doing really, and driving people down there. Are you concerned about, this is a boogeyman in the room in a lot of neighborhoods now, gentrification?
Of course. I mean, that's a big, that's a big thing in LA. And the thing that's vicious about gentrification in LA is LA will change. We'll change. This is our culture. Like we're almost anti-preservationist in a way. Like we'll tear a building down in a minute.
It's our ethos.
That's who we are. We're like, we'll tear down a building. We're like, oh, this is old. Let's put up something new and dope, right? Like, knock it down. It's funny. I had a little half second where I thought about that at the convention center. Yeah. I'm like, but then I was like, no, this is trash. It's got to go. Like, you know what I mean? So that, people feel that, like, like, okay, this neighborhood is like this now, but it'll change overnight and they'll forget we even existed, right? Yeah. And you and I both know of neighborhoods like that were one way when we were kids. Wow. And you go there now and you're like, wait, what? Like, what's happening here? Like, is it a wine bar? Like, you know what I mean?
Highland Park, we're looking at you. Yeah, right. Yeah, a little bit, but
what? So Destination Crenshaw was really an effort to confront that and say, if we put the culture right out on the street, and we define everything around the culture and the story, we think it impacts the investments that come in. So we saw in Harlem, right, when Whole Foods started to move to Harlem, they realized like the culture was so strong in Harlem that Whole Foods changed their model, right? So when you walk into that one, there's like okra and there's like cornmeal to make cornbread. Like it's just a different vibe.
Is the Vallarta in your district? The Crenshaw Vallarta?
Perfect example of that. Perfect example of that. When you go in that Vallarta, and they will tell you this, the owners of Vallarta, who are great people, you should have them on one day.
Awesome people. Yes, come on, friends of the show, let's go.
Yes, Caesar's
proud family, true LA story.
True LA story, and San Fernando Valley story.
First one, Carniceria Van Nuys. Let's go. Okay, cool.
So, but one thing, when you go in that Vallarta different than any other, you can get food and spices from every Caribbean nation.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I know they opened up the inventory a little bit.
Yeah, it opened up the inventory to fit the neighborhood, right? Yeah. And the cuts of the meat, the spices that are available, you can get a Doolin's to go inside of that place. That, and it's interesting because I was just talking to Caesar the other day. He was like, Doolin's to go is so popular. We're actually going to put them in our Valley and our Pasadena places, because who knew, right? Yeah. But he's like, we only did that because we were here and we wanted to fit the neighborhood, right? And so you have to make that culture strong and demonstrate the value. And we think you can attract investment that organizes itself around the culture rather than comes in and imposes a different culture on a neighborhood where, and use the example of Highland Park, where it's like, oh, well, we want a wine bar. No, the wine bar's not for the people who've been living here. The wine bar's for the new people. Right. And it's like, no, we want stuff for the people here and that works for the new people.
So kind of I don't want to even use the word upgrade, but
let's just change every neighborhood. Every neighborhood involves everything. Change is constantly happening.
Yeah.
The question is, can you manage the change and manage the change so that it works in favor of the people there as opposed to against the people there? And that's what we're testing out in the Crenshaw District.
That's awesome. And shout out to Marlon, who manages that Vallarta.
Yes, Marlon, good
awesome
guy.
job.
Yes.
He's a great guy. Here's one thing they did, and again, this is just a little sidebar, but inside that Vallarta, they actually hung a marlin, like the fish marlin, but in tribute to him. But more importantly, his mother passed away right before the store was being constructed. So they put her initials and I think birthday,
the date of birth date, and date of death.
Yeah, which is a really
on
good shout.
On the fin of the marlin
for him, and he was so touched. Great guy. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Blackness in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm,
Obviously, I cannot speak to that firsthand, but growing up, being immersed in the culture and being exposed, I don't want to say immersed, but being exposed heavily to the culture, because I grew up in the 90s and that's when it was really becoming like prominent in Los Angeles. I hear the narrative, and you tell me about this, that LA is becoming less of a black city. And I look at population. I mean, I know that that's not all it's about. And I'm still like, well, it's still a pretty sizable part of the population, but speak to that in Los Angeles and the relationship of the complex and, racist history in Los Angeles. But now, where does that stand?
So, so it's interesting. A lot of people don't know this about Los Angeles, but up until very, very recently, LA County had more African-American residents than the state of Mississippi.
It's great.
Like that's how much of a black space this is. But the thing about Los Angeles is it's a whole lot of spaces. Like it's a Latino space, it's a white space, it's a Jewish space, it's a Japanese space, it's a Chinese space, it's a Korean space.
Keep going.
Armenian,
like you can just go. Thai,
there are so many countries for which Los Angeles has the second largest population of
my stats,
people,
my favorite stat,
after the capital of that whatever country that is, right? Yes. So like literally, dozens of countries that are like that. And so, there's a lot of competition. But I do think when people talk about a famous politician from here who's having challenges, Mark Ridley Thomas used to say, the premature declaration of black political extinction. That was words only he could put together, right?
Yeah.
Like really, but he started saying that in the 90s, because that was in the 90s. Like, it's like the black population is going away.
Yeah.
And he rightly interpreted, and I interpret it this way. What people are really saying when they say that, that's code for black political power is going to go away. And I'll give you the perfect example. I was elected 10 years ago. The morning after the LA Times, the headline wasn't community organizer comes through or, grassroots campaign when it's, what the headline was?
What?
Will Marqueece Harris-Dawson be the last black council person from District 8?
That was the celebratory.
That was the headline. And it went on. There was the demographics this and Latinos that and black people the other thing and yada, 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 yada. And a couple things I say to that. One is the numbers have stabilized. Right. So where the numbers were dropping every year in terms of as a proportion, that's stabilized, right? And partly it didn't stabilize because black people started coming or started having more babies. It stabilized because immigration declined.
Oh, okay.
Right? So Los Angeles, less and less, is a place where when people immigrate to the United States, they go, I'm going to live there. Because, they look and they go, well, hell, you guys got your own people living on the streets. Like, why would I go to that? Yeah. Why would I go to that city, right? I'm going to go to North Carolina or Texas or a place where I can
cost of living is a big one.
So the increase in the Latino population stabilized and this lets everybody catch up. But the second thing here is this is a particularity to black people. With black people, it's never been about how many they are. It's been about their story and their struggle.
Yeah.
When Tom Bradley was mayor for 20 years, black people were never more than 10% of the city. But coming out of that community, Tom Bradley was able to say, our aspirations are your aspirations. And if we can do well, everybody's going to do well, right? And if we get what we need, everybody's going to get what they need. And so black people, and I include myself in this, have been able to have outsized representation as a result of that, because everybody can identify with the struggle. Wow. And everybody can look and see, well, yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, if their neighborhood's safe, we're all safe. It's like homicides dropped in South LA by half. crime in Los Angeles in general drops to record lows. Like
Correct.
The crime numbers now are less than at any time they've been keeping track of crime.
It's staggering when people, and look, I'm not saying crime's not an issue.
Of course,
you called me after our burglary, and
yeah.
thank you very much. So I mean, we've all been victimized different ways, but comparing the numbers,
right?
The 90s, even the 60s, like the good old days, or whatever people want to point to.
Yeah.
I was floored at what an improvement it is. So I mean, like when you see that, and again, the media. I'm not blaming the media. I'm part of the media, but blows these things out of proportion.
It's sensationalized.
It's a big improvement.
Yeah, sensationalized crime. And you know, because when it bleeds, it leads. Like that's still true.
Shoot.
But I think that to me is the story of African Americans. I mean, that's really what we want to do through Destination Crenshaw is to tell the story, because we think the story of Black people is the American story. Yeah. And it represents the best of what America can be, and what California and especially Los Angeles can be.
And beautifully said. And I always like to promote this fact because it's so important, and it makes me laugh and it makes me happy that Los Angeles is the only major city in the United States that was founded by people of color.
That's right.
Which is incredible. And, you know, it wasn't just Mexican and Spanish. There was African, Caribbean, Filipino founders Asian, of Los Angeles. Right, so like that's always pretty funny to me when we talk about the history of Los Angeles. That's right.
And you know, and Los Angeles has this freedom, right? Where you just, you know, it kind of begs the world to come here and build. Like, you know, I was, before we went on air, I was talking to you about a book about the Olympics. And it was just like, people showing up saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't ask for permission. You know what I mean? Don't wait for the government to give you a contract. Just go do it. And that's the exciting part about being an Angelino.
Tell me a little about the Olympics, LA 28, because that is an ongoing thread here. And I'll just give you my perspective. We're inside 1,000 days. I do some work with LA 28, and it's a good team running it. But I feel that at this point, I'm concerned about our preparedness. Is that fair to say? From
yeah, it's fair to say. I have to tell you, being inside and being in the weeds, actually, there are two things I'm not concerned about.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about everything else. I'm not concerned about the money.
Okay,
LA 28's raising money. Like, they're doing a great job. They've already raised more money than was spent in Paris.
That's awesome.
Right.
Great.
And we're still, and you raised most of your money within the last year.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about that. I'm also not worried about the preparedness. And I'll tell you why. The city, and that's LA Fire, LAPD, you know, electrical, transportation, the MTA, you have some of the best people in the world. They've already been working on it for 7 years. So when you hear a little, you know, thing that pops out of the news, it means that it's not going exactly how they think it should go.
Right.
It does not mean it's disastrous.
Okay.
So like, how are you going to get people to place? It's like, you know, I was in a meeting the other day and they were saying like, yeah, we're going to need the city council to pass something for landing pads for air taxis. I was like, what's an air taxi? And they're like, oh, we've been testing them for 3 years. They're basically like drones that can carry humans. And we're going to have 150 of them running during the Olympics. I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, we're going to, and I was like, what? Like, I'm just like, are we in the Jetsons? Like, are you someone playing a joke? Am I on candid camera right now? And they're like, oh no, we're like, you know, we're redoing Hawthorne Airport. And, you know, they'll locate out of there and they will take athletes and VIPs, because one of the main hangups. Yeah. The reason why you couldn't, I don't know if you were able to go to Paris, but it was very difficult to get around Paris.
Oh, really? Everybody tells me how, not everybody,
it was amazing.
Olympics people say how easy it was to get good. I'm glad to hear that.
Paris was great, but it wasn't easy to get around. Good. The main reason why it wasn't getting around was because they had 186 heads of state in town. And every time a heads of state's on a road, as you know, with the vice president is an Angela, right? The vice president, former vice president is an LA, you know, resident. And, you know, Trump doesn't come here as much, but Obama used to always be here. And, you know, it was chaos every time because shut down street. Well, that's true for any head of state.
Oh, man.
So you have 186. Well, the heads of states are not going to move on the roads.
That's interesting. So this is really happening.
It's really going. And that's an example of like, that's not been in the news. Like,
no I haven't heard that. I didn't even know that.
And that the impact that alone will have on traffic and moving around the city is light years ahead of anything else anyone's ever done for the Olympics.
So you mean to say that these critics that are so vociferous about their opposition to the Olympics might not know everything that's actually going on behind the scenes and how prepared we really are.
Right. Well, and I have to say, like, if I were just not involved and I'm not meeting with people and reading things and seeing the reports that actually come out, I would say to something, I'm like, geez, like, we can't even get the 101 free to get me from downtown to the valley. Like, how are we going to have the Olympics? Oh my gosh. But, that's a far away look at something that's big.
It's good to hear because, again, LA 32 Olympics, Schemers and Dreamers, which I already ordered per our conversation, good. But was one of the greatest Olympics. It saved the Olympics, by the way.
It saved the Olympics. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I'm super proud. It saved the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's the first Olympic Village. If you know the neighborhood Village Green in South LA, that is the first Olympic Village ever, and every Olympics has had one ever since. It's the first Olympics where we had multiple sports that women competed and medaled in.
Yeah,
it's the first Olympics where an African American medaled.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Like, there's just a bunch of stuff that LA did.
Yeah.
It's the first Olympics to have a surplus. Every Olympics we've ever had here has had a surplus after it was over.
Dang, right.
So look, LA has a lot of problems and a lot of challenges. If there's one thing we know how to do, it's the Olympics. And I fully expect 28 is going to be no different.
3 for 3. Love to hear that. Okay, I usually get into this first and foremost, but you're just so fascinating that our conversation flows. I want to know the origin story of Marqueece Harris-Dawson, man. Like, what made you who you are today? We know you were an activist and an organizer. I read that you grew up in South LA, but it also lived in Altadena, Arcadia. So you're a man of greater Los Angeles. Yeah. Tell me about how all this shaped who you are.
I'm very lucky. I always say I grew up in the heyday of Los Angeles when it was a city that was highly aspirational. So if you wanted to do something, you just made a plan and you got with other people. And you made a plan. This is a digression, but I always love this story because it encapsulated. So everybody knows the comedian Cat Williams.
Yeah.
And, funny guy. He's
comedian / super fast athlete, by the way. Runs a sub 540 as like a 50-year-old.
He tells the story. He's from St. Louis. And he says, I wanted to be a comedian and I would play St. Louis. And, I go to Chicago. I go to other cities around. And I'd say, my name is Cat Williams. And everybody'd be like, what? What's your real name, dude? Like, you're not Cat Williams. And, he said, finally, I moved to Los Angeles. I found a $300 apartment at Slauson and Crenshaw. And he said, the amazing thing about this city is when I said I'm a comedian and my name is Cat Williams, the next question was, where are you playing? He's like, no one ever. It's like I was allowed to be whoever I wanted to be here, and I could, and I could go as far as my legs would take me. And that's the time I really came of age in the city. My life and my activism is shaped by a couple things. One, my family, my parents were not activists, but they were surrounded by, Black Panther Party, Brown Beret. Those people were always in the house. And, I was always very curious about what they were doing and what they were working on and what their history was. And, it's like, oh, wow.
You were a good student?
Yeah, I was a good student. But also I was like, oh, wow, you knew Malcolm X? Like, this is a picture of your like, tell me everything you know.
So you had the intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, just like wanted to know about it. And the South Africa struggle was going on, in my youth and Mandela getting out of school. And then, a pivotal moment for me is at the age that I'm going into middle school, the crack cocaine epidemic's really getting bad. Drive-by shootings are becoming like every weekend, and the LAPD stuff is off the charts. And my parents make the decision to move out of South LA. Okay. And that was culture shock for me because I was now in a situation where I'm dealing with a bunch of racist kids that I never had to work with, and teachers and everything, and just in a neighborhood that was very different than anything I knew. Yeah. And it, that I was, from that moment on, my life really came about like, our community has to be a place where people don't feel like they have to move to keep their kids safe. Well, and so that
you recognize that?
Yeah. I recognize, like, I resented the fact that we had to move and that no one was doing anything about it. I'm like, it's, I didn't think my parents were wrong. It was really bad. I'm like, it's really bad. No one's doing anything about it. And I see, you could watch the world and you could see other problems get solved. and this problem wasn't getting solved. And in fact, the people that were the victims of the problem were being blamed for it. And so that really shaped my political life. And then, so I left California, go to Morehouse College in Atlanta. And I went there because that was a school that the most effective activist I knew of.
Proud HBCU.
Had gone. And, and most notably Martin Luther King was an alumni, but there were lots of other people. Spike Lee was another one who was big, and he had graduated from there. And so I went there. And came back to LA, and I was, working in a family business and preparing to go to law school. And, I ran into Karen Bass. And Karen Bass is a community activist at the time.
Really? Okay.
Running Community Coalition. And I was like, I got to get a job. Like, give me a job. I said, if you just pay me gas money, I'll do anything. Like, I will do, this is what I was born for.
To be young and
optimistic. Yeah, right. Like, that's what I was born for. And we worked together for about 10 years. And then she said, look, people are asking me to run for assembly. Will you take over the organization? And, and she said something to me that I'll never forget. And it's very important. And I tell people, especially young people, this now. She said, look, Marqueece, like, you're talented. People are going to, once you take this job and you have a public profile, people are going to ask you to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to throw all types of things at you. I need you to commit to me that you'll do this for at least 5 years. Because the organization won't survive if it just keeps having,
right person,
and if you can't, that's fine. But I need you to lock in. And I said, of course. And little did I mean, like, almost immediately what she said happened. And because I made that commitment, I was able to say to people like, no, I'm committed to this for this amount of time.
And it helps you dig in.
And it helps you dig in
on the issues
and
that are important to
see
you.
something through. I mean, this is my thing. And I don't ever want to say anything to discourage activists. But I'm like, guys, like these things didn't start yesterday and they're not going to end tomorrow. And I appreciate your urgency and your impatience, but you got to see it through.
Yeah.
Like, you got to see it through. That's the way, social change is not a video game. Like, it doesn't happen like that. Like, there's no code. There's no cheat codes to social change. You got to do the work. You got to involve people, and you got to,
you're talking generations.
And you're talking generations. It's totally absurd that in the richest part of the richest country in the world, we have people living on the street. But guess what? Those people didn't get on the street in a week.
Right.
We dug this hole. We spent 40 years digging this housing hole. And, it ain't going to take 40 years to get out of it, but also it's not going to be 4 weeks or 4 months. It's going to take some time. And so that was what I was able to learn during my time at Community Coalition, the value of seeing things through. And then when the 8th District became an open seat, community asked me to run, and I did. And we went through that.
What was that like, running and
winning?
winning?
Running is fun. Running and winning is way more fun than governing. Really? I'll tell you that. Way more fun. The running is like, if I could run the whole time, I'd be having a ball.
Okay.
Running's great because, you're at your highest aspiration. You're at your highest level for what's possible.
Yeah.
And you're talking to people, and you're not bogged down in the bureaucracy. You're just knocking on doors and going to churches and going to small businesses and going to community groups. It's the best, and you get to see the beauty of the city. You know what I mean? It's like,
which is the people.
Which is the people. You go into a small business and you make your pitch, and the person says, come to my house in Encino. I'm going to do a fundraiser for you. And you show up to their house in Encino, there's like 50 people from the valley who are like, I think you're great. That neighborhood's great. We want to help you. And you're like, what? Like, who knew? Like, but that's, literally you could go anywhere. And this is one of the fun parts about doing HHH. You could go from one end of the city. You could go from, Woodland Hills to San Pedro, to Liberty Hill, to Watts, and it's just amazing people in every neighborhood who are in every neighborhood that are committed to the project that is Los Angeles. And you only see that if you go face to face. Like, there's no replacement for it.
That's it. And you're so magnetic. You're dynamic. You're intelligent. You're fun. You have a good spirit. You haven't been spoiled by your time in office. I joked before we went on air. I said, you're not acting any different now that you're president of LA. It's unanimously elected, by the way, by his peers on the LA City Council. Yeah. And I don't know how much we're all paying attention, but this is not exactly a kumbaya city council where everybody sees eye to eye on every issue. Yeah. So that speaks to your character and your spirit and and what you've accomplished. And
it's nice. And it's also, just to say a little bit about my colleagues, I've been on the council 10 years. So I've really had 2 or 3 iterations of the council.
Yeah.
When I first got on the council, you had a lot of people who were, this was their 3rd or 4th office they'd held. And so they were pros, people, newbies like me and Joe Buscaino, were like always trying to figure out what the hell's happening and what are they talking about, right. And then we had sort of a middle section. In this council, again, now you have the opposite. The majority of people, this is their first political activity. And so there's a lot of like, oh, that makes no sense. Why are we doing that? You know what I mean? So, and then it has to be explained, but it's beautiful because one, people don't come in with a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you stubbed my toe 10 years ago. And
boy.
There's like,
all the grudges.
Yeah. There's no grudges. Or you endorsed against my guy. And there's not a lot of that. There's a lot of genuine curiosity, and there's a lot of urgency around like, we got to get this right. And a lot of what's been surprising is there's a great deal of humility. Like people are very opinionated and, gung-ho and like strident, but also like understand very clearly that they have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Which is a great environment to be in.
Self-awareness. Okay. A couple more questions. I know we're running out of time. How has your district evolved now in your 3rd term? What have you seen and what are you most proud of?
Well, I think the big thing in the district is a very interesting and good question. Just as a practical matter, all of our big encampments are gone.
Yeah.
Like we still have some encampments, but our big ones are 15, 20 people encampments gone. Like, good. And those corners for the most part are spotless. Cause like we talked about earlier, the city now has a system where we go back and get them. I also think we've made strategic investment in all the major corridors.
Yeah.
So all the big streets have new housing, new streetscape, new sidewalks, new trees. And so, and that was important to me because I know one of the things, if you take side streets, so this, one of the things about South LA is you can drive down a main street and it can look like, a semi-war zone, like graffiti, broken windows, closed up.
Not just in South LA.
Not just in South LA.
But yes, I know.
And then you turn on the residential street, like every lawn is perfect, every flowers, like every house looks amazing. 100%. Like anybody who drives, and it's so annoying. And so, it's like, because if you live there, you're like, well, this doesn't what's happening here doesn't represent me. Like this is not who we are.
Yeah.
And so we made a concerted effort to make the streets that everybody uses as nice as the streets that only neighbors use.
Wow.
Right. And so again, we got a long way to go, but you can see that sort of slowly starting to happen. And then I think also political maturity. Right. So the South LA can often find itself on the outskirts of the political discussion in South LA.
Right.
I think, my leadership on the council, I think the mayor coming out of, she didn't come out of the 8th district, she comes out of the 10th, but the same comes out of South LA. Key people in key positions coming out of the neighborhood gets the neighbor and the Olympics because the venue with the most events is Exposition Park. So it makes South LA the center of the whole jam, right?
That's
like
cool.
the whole jam. It's not Hollywood. It's not the West Side.
Coliseum,
it's not
BMO over there.
BMO, and then again, just up the street at the southern edge of downtown is Crypto and the Convention Center.
Right.
So it really places us in the center of the political discussion, and that's a different place for our neighborhood to be.
That's awesome.
And where the primary conversation isn't about South LA isn't the problems.
It's good. That's impressive, and that is a good legacy. Okay, you're termed out after this term, right? 3 terms.
Yes.
What's next for Marqueece Harris-Dawson?
I've always
after
dreamed, but you took my job. I wanted to be the next Jewel Hauser of Southern California, but I feel like you've taken that over before I could get to it.
There's room for everybody. There's so many good stories, people, neighborhoods in this city. There's room for all of us. But you are kind of doing it with MHD behind the scenes.
We are. We're trying to do it. Yes, that's right.
That's the podcast. Available everywhere, by the way.
MHD off the record. You just gave me an idea. Now we got to take it on the road. We got to do live places.
I said MHD behind the scenes. It's MHD
off the record.
Yeah. Sorry, you're correct. Yeah. Which I was on, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. It's one of our more.
But tell us about that.
Well, we just did a podcast because there's so much rich culture that doesn't come to the surface, and we wanted to get the perspective of people who are consumers of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
we wanted to hear them talk about it, because usually those conversations are private between friends or in small groups. And so we wanted to put it out in a broader way. And when we hear somebody say something or do something or have a great experience about our community, we try to get them on and put it out to as many people as possible.
It's awesome. It's a fun show. And you're last thing, you're so easy to talk to. You're so human, accessible, friendly, not like many politicians. How do you stay yourself? They're dealing with all this, the frustration, the annoyance.
Thank you for that. Those are very kind things to say. I mean, how do I say myself? Everybody else is taken first. I'm not looking to be second fiddle. But secondly, I give this to good parenting and a lot of good mentors.
Yeah.
We don't have time for games.
It's great.
We just don't. It's the things we're working on are too urgent. Just show up. I'm just, as I tell everybody when I'm in political discussion, I say, when I show up to the card game, I'm doing like that with all my cards.
Thank you.
And I'm saying and if I'm sitting on 2 aces and I got better cards, I'm going to tell you, I got 2 aces. So you want to go through the motions, or you want me to just you know what I mean? Or, hey, I don't have any cards.
It's a great way to live life.
I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like I do have cards, because that kind of theater is, life is too short.
Man, well, so was this interview. I feel like we could talk for hours, and I genuinely appreciate you coming here. Marqueece Harris-Dawson, the LA City Council president and the representative for the great CD8. Thank you so much for being here and joining the show.
Thank you. Good times, man.
The heck out
appreciate
of you,
it, man.
Thank you. And everybody in LA, support MHD Off the Record. Download the podcast, listen to the podcast, all platforms, and just support this man who's really doing a lot for Los Angeles. And thank you for the convention center spearhead that, because that's going to do a lot. But you're doing so much. And go down and visit Crenshaw. It is awesome. I'm telling you right now, we didn't spend enough time on Harold and Bell's.
Yes,
unbelievable
food.
Duelins. But there's so many good places, and just support all of LA. You know how it is. Be a tourist in your own town. CD8's a great place to start. Marqueece Harris-Dawson, thank you so much. All right, LA. It's been a minute.